You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
I want to talk about news, don't want the drama. From no pretentious media Madonna. I found me a great ganja mama. Cannabis and coffee with some marijuana.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cannabis and Coffee with me, to Marijuana. Just waiting on my guest to roll in, so a few minutes. But first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I am residing on Tanaha and Akum territory of the unceded territory of the Tanaha and Akum in beautiful British Columbia. And I live in the Rocky Mountains. I'm not sure if many of you know, well, probably a lot of you do know where I am, but I live in, in the Rocky Mountains in British Columbia, and it's beautiful here. And our weather's been kind of funky. We had a blizzard, kind of like a flash blizzard this morning too. It was kind of crazy, but it's been warming up, and that means that it's time to start popping seeds and getting your outdoor grow ready to go, right? Because you want to have those seeds going before you ever get into the ground, right? And if you're indoor growing, then it could be cropping. A lot of people will be doing that every other, week if they're medical, and that's the thing. Medical patients have been kind of thrown under the bus. And why I'm excited to bring my guest in tonight, I'm just going to check with her. Okay, hang on. She's confused, so I'm just going to send her the link again. So I'm just going to pop out of here. I'm going to copy this link because they're confused. So just give me 2 seconds. What have I done here? We're going to share. Invite a guest. We're going to copy that. And we're going to go over here, and we're going to tell her to click on this link. Just send them a quick message. Isn't this great? You can just kind of pop in out of screens. The technology we have these days. There. So I sent them the link again, and I'm hoping that they're going to pop back in here. But that's what I mean. We as patients. Oh, and there they are. So I'm going to add her to the screen. Yay! Yay! There you guys are. Hi. No, it's
hang on. Here's the big one.
Yes, I was just telling her I was so excited to bring you in because you're one of the longest licensed patients in Canada. Like, you were a patient long before there was an MMAR or an ACMPR.
Right.
So
hang on, I can't hear you. Hang on 1 second.
Okay.
Hey, darling.
There.
No, you're the one beside me, dear, not that one.
We're always on the.
Sorry, I just can't hear you. I apologize, sweetheart.
That's totally fine.
Hang on, Gary's just trying to get us hooked up together.
Yeah, well,
I can hear you. How do we do?
Just 1 minute. Say something.
Oh, am I there?
No. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Turn it up. I can't hear you that well, sweetie.
Oh, really? Let's see if we can change something.
I can't hear you at all, really. What should I do?
Hang on, I'm gonna do something here. I'm gonna volume up your mic, and I'm gonna volume up my mic.
Honey, I can't hear you at all.
Hang on. We're gonna.
Can't hear
The
it.
headphones, would they work?
Not on this.
Maybe the headphones anyway. I have no idea how else to get sound.
Then you can't use the mouse. You have to use your finger on
Yeah,
that.
I don't know.
On here, you
What
can
does
use
that
that.
mean?
If I take this out,
So what does that mean?
okay, here we'll connect you to this.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, hang on. I can hear a little better. Gary's just working some magic, darling.
Yeah. I changed my settings a bit too, I think, which
Beautiful.
kind of helps. But yeah, I've been having issues with that the last couple times that we've been on, where it's just can you hear me a little better
Yeah,
now?
I can't hear.
Where the things are not working so well. But maybe if you got the headphones on.
Try it now. No, put them on.
Still can't hear?
Hello?
Hello, I can hear you.
Okay, now.
Yeah, no, you're.
Okay, now
I
try.
can
Now try.
barely hear you,
Now
sweetie.
try it. Can you say something? Talk.
That's okay because I'm not here to talk. We want to hear you talk. So if you can't hear me, that's okay.
Sweetie, I'm
We
sorry.
can
I
hear
can
you.
barely hear you, honey.
Yeah.
Can
Okay,
you
well-
turn those up as high as they can go?
Okay, now
That
you
would
can
be
use the mouse.
great. Yeah. Thanks, sweetheart. So sorry, Tamara. Go
That's
ahead,
okay.
honey. Okay, put both speakers in front of me, right beside me, and then I can hear.
Let's see if that changes anything.
You don't have to.
Sorry, honey. Okay, talk. Go ahead.
How about that? Any
Oh,
better?
a little louder again.
Can you hear me now? Is that a little better?
There, I can hear a little better.
Awesome.
Woohoo!
Woo!
We're cooking with gasoline.
Technology, right? It's just technology. And that's the thing, it's
Hey.
technology. And besides, if you can't hear me, that's okay, because we're here to hear what you have to say. So if you can't hear me, that's okay. As long as we can hear you.
You know what? Honey, you sound fabulous, sweetheart. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you been doing? I mean, your health's been kind of giving you another run for your money again, hey?
Hey, that's okay, darling. I have a little joke. I don't really have MS. I am a mess. MESS. I swear, honey, it's been upside down my whole life. So
I know, right? But again, you've been battling your whole life too with a lot of things. So as I was saying prior to, you've been one of the longest patients in Canada because you're actually a patient licensed, technically a Section 56, long before there was an MMAR. So why don't we tell our guests who you are and how you got started?
sure, honey. Thank you for having me again, Tamara. And hello, everybody out there in social media land. My journey started actually. I'm a retired corrections officer. I was a corrections officer in the 80s and 90s with young offenders. And I was having some really funky health problems, and I didn't know exactly what was going on. After seeing a lot of doctors and nobody giving me any answers, I decided I was going to go the route of the government because at that time I was smoking cannabis with some friends of mine. And funny enough, I was getting better. And so much so that friends of mine were throwing ounces of cannabis in my lap at parties so I would get up and dance. And literally that happened for so many years that in 1994, I decided nobody in the government knew what I was talking about with marijuana at the time, which we called it then horrible. It's cannabis. And it ended up that I went to my local member of parliament and got one of the first Section 56s in Canada for cannabis consumption to be legally allowed to possess, grow, and consume cannabis as medicine. And that was again 1994. So that's what started me on my journey, my darling.
Right. Exactly. And then it kind of rolled into court case after court case and all kinds of other, because patients have been battling for a very long time just to have the access and the ability to be able to get access to this amazing plant for medicine. And never mind that, the doors are opening for other other related, psychedelic medications as well too now. But cannabis was really a hard go, and it's still a hard go because we still don't have medical access. I mean, everybody's got access with recreational cannabis. You definitely have access. You can go and you can get whatever you want to a certain point, but it's not medical access. The dosing for that edibles and everything else is not near what it should be. Doctors are still been scared off, so they will not sign the paperwork. They figure, oh, it's legal now. What do you need my help for? We don't need to learn anymore. It's legal now. You have access. And that's the biggest mistake that our medical doctors are making, because right now, with it being medically or with it being legal, will be the time for them to grab on and do the research that's required to prove to Health Canada that cannabis is a medicine.
100% I agree.
Right?
This is exactly why on May 6th and Saturday, May 6th, again this year, because I haven't done it for the last few, I haven't been well, Gary and myself are going to march the streets of Toronto around Nathan Phillips Square, around the park. I can't even think of the park, just escaped me. But there's a big park that we always went to in the middle, right by Queen's Park. I'm sorry. Anyway, whatever it is, I apologize. I can't hear if somebody's talking, but that particular park, we're going to march the big city block in that area and protest for the global cannabis march, because things are not at all kosher globally with cannabis. And that's a big concern for me. So Canada,
and that was
yes,
that was one that, right? And that's the one that I first started when I first got involved with the cannabis movement too, was the Global Marijuana March. And that's how I got started. And it was because of that whole aspect of illegality and how it's affecting people all over the world, right?
Yeah. It's so true, darling. And there were 5 of us that brought it to Toronto. And I think it was, Gary said, either 1999 or 1998. I can't really remember, but there were 5 of us, and me in my wheelchair with a big sign, and we marched those darn streets of Toronto, and people had no idea what we were talking about. There were 5 of us the year that it started. Stephen Bacon, who's a licensed cannabis patient like me and one of the very first in the country. I'm one of the first 20 patients in Canada, and I think he's even before me. But Stephen Bacon, myself, and 2 Compassion Club or dispensary owners at the time, Dom and Neve, and Gary. And literally, we marched those streets. The first year, 5 of us. The following year, there were over 50,000 people marching in Toronto for the Global Marijuana March, because we said it was serious. It was serious then, and it's still serious. We need change. We need things done.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, it needs to be a worldwide. But it's the funny thing is, with recreational legalization, Australian has opened up for, medical, and our Canadian companies are down there growing.
Yes.
The hypocrisy of it, right?
It is. And that's the whole thing, because when we started this again decades ago, it's been almost 30 years I've been fighting this, since 1994. It would be 30 years next year that I've been fighting for these silly laws to be, dropped to everybody. Again, Tamara, as a retired corrections officer, and with law enforcement in your family, drugs are not an enforcement issue at all. They don't belong in a court of law. And I sat as a corrections officer, as a jail guard decades ago in court, telling the judge I'd had enough, because the young people I was bringing into court were getting jailed for tremendous amounts of time and getting horrible criminal records from, again, running drugs for people who are older, and they knew nothing that they were doing about it at all. They were just trying to make a little bit extra money. And again, Tamara, I told judges, judge after judge after judge in court, everyone that I took young offenders to court, drugs again are a health issue and do not belong in a court of law, period.
Right. I mean, that is the one upswing with legalization, is that we've got, I think the first statistics came out that 60,000 people have not been arrested because of recreational legalization. So there is that one upside for it, right? But I mean, they still have laws attached.
Why are patients like me still having no access? Why is it that people like me are still on the street buying a medicine? that we have by now in our pharmacies and have available to us 24/7. This is absolutely disingenuous of this government and all the governments in Canada who have been in charge since I've been young. Enough is enough. This is not a UN issue. It is not involved in nations in any way, shape, or form. Canada is a separate entity. We are our own country. We are a nation who stands alone. Canada needs to have courage to say people are dying because this issue is not resolved and because drugs, again, are a health issue. And again, drugs don't belong definitely in the hands of criminals, but they also don't belong in the hands of people who, again, are hurting people like us.
Right. Well,
So
out here,
some,
they've decriminalized 2.5 grams of all drugs in British Columbia. So that
yes,
means that it's not close to where it should be because we still need like safe supply, right? Because the supply is just ridiculous. So it's poison. But they're trying this project out where if you're caught with 2.5 grams possession, you're not, they'll just, and this just started. This was just a new thing that just started in British Columbia. So I guess we're the guinea pig to see how it goes. And if it does work well, but I can't, you know, like I've got a child that's addicted. I wish that her health was better, and it's not. And I don't look at it as it being anything other than a health issue, right?
You bet. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
know
And I
what,
wish
though,
more people
tomorrow,
did, right?
one thing I learned, I spoke for LEAP, as you know, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition in the United States. They found me actually when I was speaking. We were doing a protest out in Ottawa on Parliament Hill in 2004, and one of the founding members, Jack Cole, ended up walking up the streets of Ottawa, and I guess heard me over the loudspeakers through the streets talking about legalizing and regulating all drugs, and that was then I was going to do it. Well, that night, Jack invited Gary and I up to his room at the hotel and signed me up for LEAP. And I spoke with them for 12 years and for them. And literally, we tried to make noise around the world. I'm still very much in touch with people from LEAP from all around the world because I so believe in their mandate, which is, again, to legalize and regulate all drugs, get them all off the street, get them all out of the hands of criminals, get them away from our children and in a place where they need to be once and for all. You know, and tomorrow, save our children. That's what it comes down to. Save our children. How many lives have we lost to overdoses of drugs, substances, which scare the heck out of everybody and their neighbor? And you know what? If all drugs were legalized tomorrow, we all know we wouldn't do them. I personally wouldn't do half the things that I've even attempted to try because of this silly little pain in my face. I would not have touched these substances otherwise.
No.
So there you go. And I'm one of how many people who feel this way?
I think a majority of us actually do. I just think that the people don't have enough gumption. And I think there's a lot of propaganda out there about mental health and about drug addiction. And I think people are just because, you know, like, let's face it, some of the behavior once you're addicted is not good. A lot of criminal activity happens. But again, if the drugs were all legal, there wouldn't be criminal activity to add to it, right? Like, and that's the whole point of it.
Help.
Right.
We also can't get them help, though. Can it bless you? Whoever's sneezing.
Oh, that's
God
right.
bless you.
That's the dog. It's her.
Oh, God bless you, puppy. Oh.
She's old. That's the old Peely. She sneezes all the time. She's an old thing. But again, it's absolutely true. Like I think it was 7 years ago, yesterday, that BC actually, you know, marked this as being an emergency. It's a thing in British Columbia that they, you know, deemed it as an emergency. Yep. And I'm hoping that there is going to see some change, but we've lost 85 people in this area alone, and I live in a small area over the last years to drug addiction.
You bet.
Right?
And you can tell me the opioid epidemic is a part of that. This is what we're fighting, Tamara, and people don't understand. They feel if these drugs, the harder substances, are legalized and regulated, that would mean, again, that everybody would have access and we'd all do it tomorrow. if you again think of things like this, there are so many studies that I could quote from LEAP, which I wish I could remember right now, that I've spoken about for decades, all about the fact that that would not happen. I mean, this is
Too.
way off in one respect, but I remember reading a quote from, I think it was Timothy Leary, and he said, if everybody was on acid for one day, we'd all be love. It would just be love all around the world, because these
Right?
substances, they scare people like us who maybe have not used them. And for example, I just had a call from a friend of mine, funny enough, from BC, and he's been incredible to me over the years. He's helped me so much with medicine. He is one of the beautiful people I've ever met, and he's sending me some acid. And when he sends me, the sheets of LSD, people don't realize I don't take it to go have fun and trip out and go have a good time at a party, and not at all. I am fighting this violent pain in my face 24/7, and LSD or acid takes it out of my face and head within seconds, just like the psilocybin. And the
Right?
thing is, again, Tamara, those two particular substances are now studied because people like us are making noise about them around the world. And honestly, talking about them again, since I was given the first authorization in the world for psilocybin as medicine for pain in 2017 by my neurologist. And you know what, Tamara? I'm never going to stop talking about this. I am 59 years old, and it took me over 40 years to find answers for everything that I'm dealing with. And I will not stop, because I know there are other people who are doing the same thing I am, just like yourself, honey.
Right? Well, you have to take care of your own
Right?
health in some ways, right? And sometimes
Hey,
they're not
proactive.
giving you options. They don't give you those certain options. And that's the hard thing about not being able to get the certain options that you need, right? Again, where
You bet.
we are with the medical cannabis. Like again, we don't have medical access. You've got recreational access, you don't have medical
You
access.
bet.
The dosing with the edibles is ridiculously low. There's nowhere anywhere you can get something that's going to actually medically help you. They're not even looking at letting you have psilocybin in the stores yet, right? Which is something that should be being done, in my opinion. But
You
again,
bet.
like we're still sitting on this cusp of irrationality.
But
Now we've had the court
again,
cases that have
Tamara,
won,
you bet.
right? And there's this upcoming consultation in May that we will have representation at, and good representation at. I'm not going to say too
You
much about
bet.
it on the air because we'll see what goes. And yeah, it's not up to me to be saying anything too much, but we do have something coming up in May that's fairly significant, and we will
You
have great
bet.
representation, right?
You know
So
what,
that's
again, honey? Excellent.
right. And that's what we need. We need to keep having representation. We need to keep talking to Health Canada. We need to keep pushing forward. And I'm pretty happy to say that finally got a doctor here in British Columbia, like where I am, that's willing to sign patients.
Sweetheart, I'm telling you, those doctors are all heroes as far as I'm concerned, because you hit it on the head earlier when you said so many of them are scared to sign for us. And I will guarantee you it's because activists like me came out and said, hey, we need some help, and there's not one other thing in this world that works for us. So guess what? Now you're under the gun. So they again are under a lot of pressure. And each time, tomorrow, I get studies sent to me from Dr. Still, including one study. This is a little sort of both, but cannabis and psilocybin together totally eradicate breast cancer. I can send you studies like you wouldn't believe, and that was from a university here in Ontario that actually did the study in 2017 when I first came out about cannabis and psilocybin together. And they right away published that study, and the doctor sent it to me and said, hey, cannabis and psilocybin eradicates breast cancer together. And I was like, wahoo! So again, tomorrow, post, share the information everywhere, make sure the world is on the same page we are. That's all we
right?
do.
And that's
That's
exactly it,
all we do.
right? And that's all you can do is keep pushing forward, right? And
Exactly.
thankfully, and like I said, thankfully there are some of us that haven't gone to the dark side, that haven't,
So
joined the mob, and just kind of stood back. And maybe it was because due to our own poverty or whatever it is. It was obviously happens for a reason, right? Look at
I'll
me,
tell you,
growing teaching people how to grow cannabis in a mainstream garden shop. Like, who would have thought that, right?
hey, you know what? Remember when we fought decades ago? Remember when we were in Parliament in the green room before we went and spoke in front of the media? And we all were talking about the fact exactly of that. What is going to happen one day when cannabis is legal? Well,
Right,
here we are, right?
right,
Now, what we
right,
need to do is make sure that people who come up after us in this world, in this country, especially, also have reasons, pardon me, to be fighting for things like this. If they are not happy, if you're not happy with the way things are, get out and speak out about it. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I'll tell you, my family grew up calling me Squeaky when I was little because I was always complaining about something. And rather than actually complain, I learned as the older I got to get actually out and do things about it. So again,
right.
I now no longer complain. I actually just get out and get it done.
And you have
So, and I
for
have a
many,
couple
many
things.
years.
Hey, you know what? There's another grow thing coming up soon, and I just spoke to my friend Anthony Foster, who was just on your show recently. And Anthony in this area runs Hamilton Vape, and he's asked me to be a panelist for something coming up in the next couple of weeks here in the area. So, there are always things, as you know, that people need to learn about. And growing cannabis and psilocybin are two of the best things for patients, as well as just the general population here in Canada. I think
Right,
because we realize cannabis is less harmful than coffee, and psilocybin is less harmful than cannabis. So,
right,
again,
exactly.
steering your own
Well,
boat,
and
right?
microdosing, like, how many people do we know that actually like microdose that would normally be taking like an antidepressant? And some people
So
don't
many,
realize,
too
and
many.
that's the proof in the pudding. As far as I'm concerned, if you've got people that actually like patient study, patients testimonies, people saying this is what works for me. Why isn't that being recorded and sent in? Like, why is that being ignored? Why is that being not listened to?
I remember the lawyers saying to us that anecdotal evidence wasn't the evidence we needed decades ago when we went to court for cannabis. And anecdotal meaning your version, my version, right? People's own version of it. What we're trying to do is say to doctors, why wouldn't analytical evidence make a difference? Why wouldn't somebody who's a patient like you or somebody else that we know who's been consuming some of these substances for years, why wouldn't the doctors be interested and all of them make their own study? That's what my doctors have done for me, and they've always done that with me. My neurologist used to talk to me about the fact that I represent patients around the world with cannabis issues with the International Association for Cannabinoid Medicines in Bonn, Germany. And I've been a representative for them for Canadian patients since 2011. And I won't stop again doing that sort of thing because people around the world have to know what we know. We all have to have the information together and share it around the world. Like I said, this is a global issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break here, in about 3 minutes, and we'll be back. And we have to, like Al says, pay the bills. So thanks. We'll be right back. Um, 2 minutes.
Right on.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Let's share PACE everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch, yes, watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Pace Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
All right, we're back with Alison Myrden. And again, like the first sponsors, yeah, I guess it's just another day in the life of everybody having to get through. And it's unfortunate that we're having to still fight this silly bunch of.
Darn right. It is unfortunate.
It totally is.
Can I tell you a quick story? This is actually kind of cute. When I started as an activist, I remember when, first of all, when somebody from the media called me an activist, and I looked at them and they said, "What the heck is an activist?" Anyway, so I was in my late 20s. I had come out to a protest in Toronto where a fellow by the name of Jim Wakeford, who was an AIDS patient, who had been arrested at the time and charged with growing cannabis. Anyway, Jim Wakeford was sort of like the main fixture at this protest. He was sitting up on this really narrow, really high hill, and he was on a lawn chair. And of course, I have multiple sclerosis, and I don't know how he did it, but I got all the way up this hill, right to the top, and Jim was shocked that I was even beside him then, watching me climb up. And he looked at me and I said, "Hey," I said, "don't worry, Jim." I said, "My name's Alison Myrden." I said, I'm here, you won't have to worry anymore." And he goes, "Kid, this will be the loneliest road you ever go down." And I said, "But Jim, that's why." I said, "I'm bringing all my friends." And I never looked back. And I laugh to this day because I swear that's what I said to him. And look at all of you. You're incredible. Every single one of you.
Well, we all live in pockets of Canada, right? If we don't spread the information across the whole everywhere, then
Hey.
there's pockets of us like that we don't know everybody. It's kind of like the new and upcomings. We don't know them; they don't know us. And then there's all these other people from all over the country that been doing exactly what we've been doing for just as long as we have. We just haven't because our area is so
So
vast,
true.
right? So
So
this
true.
is how we've gotten here. Like, my little town is like inundated with little cannabis shops, right? And I'm not it is what
Right.
it is. And that's
Right.
not a bad thing because people have access. Or whether it's
Right.
the access that we require isn't, necessarily the greatest, but it's still the ability to go and get clean, tested, cannabis, right? That's
You
how I
bet.
look at it. You're not worrying about finding
Any
anything.
substance though, you want to be safe. It's all about safety, right? We're trying to
Right?
do
I think,
things that are less harmful than other things.
right?
So,
I
which
mean,
is
I've always
again
said like
why.
we should have a store that sells cocaine and all the other things that, legally so people can go
You
buy it.
betcha. I've had it.
And
I was given cocaine and heroin through my doctors decades ago. I'm not adverse to those as medicine. But again, Tamara, that's a really good point because again, not everybody would use those substances and turn to
I'm not going to
those.
start using cocaine or heroin, even if I could go buy it in a store. I'm not.
My point.
I don't care
My
how
point
clean it is.
exactly. Yep. My point exactly.
I
Just
know that
because
it's
it's a
that
bill doesn't mean we're going to use it.
well, here's the thing. When you have a medical issue, which is addiction, you don't go back and look to get sick again, right? Like it's like having cancer and deciding that you're going to go and do everything you can possibly to get cancer again. That seems like kind of stupid, right? So if people look
Sweetie,
at
again.
addiction like cancer, or you know what I mean,
Yes.
why would people like? So I'm not going to go out and start looking for cancer, and that's how it is to me.
But you know what? The whole point of legalizing these substances is having somebody in charge who can control them properly. So again, that's to avoid all of the problems that we're having in society right now. You don't want the wild west of drugs out in this country by any means. You want somebody who can control them. And whether that be somebody in government or, and depending on the substance, right? Some substances definitely need some control. And I would necessarily, sorry, most definitely, I apologize, would not want things like fentanyl being made available, carfentanil, things like that. I've had fentanyl as a patient. I can understand again the medical properties of it. But I, again, as a patient, again, who is, I pride myself on the choices I make. I would not choose fentanyl. So that's again why I'm going down the road of psilocybin or LSD because those substances, for my particular issues and my health issues, are far, far less harmful for me than even the pharmaceuticals I take. Again, I don't even call those pharmaceuticals. I spell them out and call them little p capital HARM aceuticals
Right.
so that people know that not everything is safe. Right? So,
I'm right there with you.
oh,
I have to take
are you okay,
pharmaceuticals
sweetheart?
to keep myself going now too, and that's
Yeah.
it was heartbreaking to realize that even like it sucked, but it is what it is. But I use cannabis still for other the same reasons, just
You bet.
having to have a little hand with something else, right?
Can I tell you too, though, sweetheart, that people have to be aware that cannabis isn't just for really heavy health issues like excruciating pain and things that I deal with. By no means. When I first was introduced to cannabis decades ago, I actually found out from Dr. Ethan Russo and Raphael Macalom, who recently passed, the scientist who founded THC and cannabis. When I met those two men and those two gentlemen at a conference in Cornwall, Ontario. It was the first cannabis conference in Canada in 1990. I think it was, no, sorry, early 2000s. And I was invited there by Dr. Ethan Russo to this big conference, and I was the only layperson. I brought my mother with me, And both Raphael, Rafi, we called him, and Dr. Ethan Russo educated me so much on things that I found out that I could actually get rid of my asthma problems with cannabis. Who would have thought smoking cannabis would actually help asthma? I ended up getting off 3 asthma inhalers because of those men.
Yeah.
And these are the things that people have to know. It's not just, again, pain issues and, whatever bowel issues is that we all talk about, whether it be IBS or, epilepsy or things like that. It's not things like that necessarily. It's other things that cannabis helps because we have an endocannabinoid system in our body. So
Yeah.
again, it
Right.
works magic, right?
That's right. That's right. And it can be anything. It can be used just because you can't sleep at night. That's how, you know what I
Exactly.
mean? I'd rather
Exactly.
smoke a joint than have to take a sleeping pill, right?
Yes, my darling.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
that's,
one
you
thing
know,
I've
and
never done. Sorry.
yeah.
I was going to say tomorrow, my doctor, funny enough, sleep is again another issue because I can fall asleep in seconds with cannabis. And especially when I take cannabis oil, I'm like out like a light for hours. But I'll tell you again, doctors have to learn these things that, again, patients, it doesn't matter necessarily what we want and don't want. It's a matter what it boils down to is choice tomorrow. And if people are not given choice, they will do what they want anyway. I'm a good
Yeah.
example.
Right. Well,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Then I
So
think that's
something's
everything.
got to
Like
be done.
it's one of those ask for forgiveness things. That's
You
how I
bet.
always look at it.
You bet. And always think outside the box, right? When we started fighting for cannabis as medicine, I remember my first lawyer, Alan Young, telling me, no, cannabis is a medicine, Allison. I said, oh, yes, it is, Alan. You just wait. But, again, I mean, these are the things we all dealt with, right? And I mean, this seems so, prehistoric now because cannabis has been legalized for a while. But bottom line, again, these are the things that we had to deal with when we were growing up, when we were young, in order for all of you to know exactly what it's like now for us, to have gone through these things in order, again, to fight for our fellow citizens of Canada.
Right.
So
So that
never
they don't
end.
have
It'll
to.
never end with me.
Right. Exactly. Like I said, the difference between some kids in a park smoking, joint, one of them has like an eighth or a couple grams in his pocket. And the next thing you know, the cops are calling them all off to the police station, and your kids rolling up, in a cop car, at, 14, 15 years old because they were smoking some weed in the park. Again, because they're
And I
underage
see
and
them in
probably
jail.
right. But
Yeah,
before,
I
they
see
did
them
it.
in jail because of that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
see them. And you don't think that's a good thing for them or me, I'll tell you right now. Because neither of us wants your parent. You're a mother. You don't want to see your child put in jail for something that's a health issue again. Why is your son consuming cannabis? I have never ever, in all the time that I worked in corrections, I've never known anybody to pick up the phone and say, hello, my son or daughter has cannabis. Can you come and arrest them? I've never ever heard that story.
No.
Parents worry when there's substances that we know little about. And that's again what I'm trying to do is educate everybody to educate yourselves. So I can tell you everything and anything about every substance under the sun, but you need to investigate it yourself so that you know firsthand. Right? Whoever you are, get out there and spread the word.
Right. And that's the best advice you can give anybody. And I don't think that, like
Totally.
that's a thing that there are so many with the, drugs and everything being decriminalized out here. This testing and stuff is available too. At least here in our town it is, and in Vancouver they've got testing sites, which is a great thing to have too. But what do you think about, what do you think about that? What do you think about the decriminalization of British Columbia?
Actually, again, I think it's a start tomorrow. But I have a serious problem with decriminalization of any substance in Canada, because not only does that target low hanging fruit like young people or people who are in the street alleys, can be easily picked by police, that actually is a serious problem to me, because not only will those people be ticketed, but they'll be the first ones who will not be able to pay their fine. So that's a serious issue for me. So legalizing amounts of small amounts of substances would make me much happier. But decriminalization, I can see again that it's a start. I just don't want the country to get complacent and think that decriminalizing these substances is enough, because it's nowhere near what we need to be doing. Not at all. If we want to have a supply, and we want to have a consistent supply for people like patients or those who are in need of substances on a regular basis, legalization is the only way to go.
Where do you think they would be able to get the supplies? Like,
Hey, if
where
they
would they be able?
legalize, you know what? There are a number of places tomorrow, but I'm sure they can figure that out. I am not somebody who would know anything like that necessarily, but even still, I know, as an example, people used to get upset when we were young because they would, police would burn and destroy all the cannabis that they got out from illegal gardens, etc., that they, came across. And what people didn't understand was that some of those illegal gardens were not safe. So it's not up to us to pick and choose as somebody in society again to say where these substances should come from. They should be actually thought about and thought hard about by people who are in the know and people who can get these substances to these people and to all of us if that's the case. We as citizens of this country deserve again a choice.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
All
right.
drugs, as far as I'm concerned, should have been legalized and regulated when I was young. And I've
Yeah,
been fighting for over 30 years for that to happen, and it will happen one day. I
yeah,
will
yeah,
guarantee you, people are not, yeah, they're not, people aren't scared anymore. What they're scared of is what they're not in control of. So if they
yeah,
take control of something, then they're less afraid, right? That's
yeah,
all I say to people.
yeah.
Educate
I,
yourself.
yeah, I agree. I think that would really cut down on the crime and poverty. And there's just the, but I think bottom line
So
is
much.
poverty.
So
Like,
much. But
where do you?
again, there's you, tomorrow. You're so right. It's all marginalized people. All of these issues involve people who are marginalized, right? Ugh. Whether they're people who have addictions to these substances, or whether they're people who are vulnerable in their health in another way, or the people that just are down and out of their luck in that particular time period of their life. The thing is, though, Tamara, we have to have a safe, available source of these substances for when these things happen, because they will happen. People will fall, and they will, end up going to the street for some of these substances, right? Would you not rather somebody go and even a harm reduction, even a harm reduction clinic? Would you not rather somebody go there and have the proper people oversee them and make sure that what
Yeah,
they're doing is at least safe? You're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So that's
And
where my
clean,
head
right?
is.
Yeah,
You bet.
yeah.
And clean. You
Well,
bet.
and that's the worst part about it. Like, people are dying in the streets, and that's horrific. Where
You
if they
know,
had more injections, I know I know what the hardest part about it is budgets and money, and like I get it, but
what?
I'm sick of the excuses.
Again, tomorrow we've got a lot of fancy footwork to do in this country to get where I would like us to be. But as a country, we are moving a lot faster in that direction than I ever thought we could. It took us decades to legalize cannabis, and it seems like with psychedelics, it's been like that. Literally. I came out in 2017 as the first person in the world to be authorized to consume psilocybin for pain. Nobody even talks about that. They're still talking about anxiety and depression and end of life care, which is incredibly important. But at the same time, people aren't realizing that substances like these psychedelics work for issues like pain unless they talk to somebody who happens to be using them for that. So, and these sorts of things, like I said, it's so fast, Tamara, how fast the country has jumped on board, and especially with the opioid epidemic. You better believe we're all getting educated a lot faster than we thought we were.
That's good because that can be, helpful with the withdrawal and everything on that aspect too, right? And we know that edibles and for cannabis is very helpful with withdrawals for opioids. So that's something, another reason why it really needs to be said, made clear that higher dosages are needed to be available in edible cannabis products, right? Oils, shatter, all of these products.
Honey, again, it's choice, right? It's choice. And it doesn't matter what doesn't work for you, what might work for somebody else. And who
Right.
are we to say no to somebody because whatever they choose doesn't work for us? Who are we to
Right.
say that?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. I agree 100%.
I'll tell you, darling, again,
You got the Global
there's
Marijuana March coming up. What?
you bet. Yes, we're gonna go out, Gary and myself. The day of the Global Marijuana March is the first Saturday in May of every year. So in any city, wherever you are, anywhere in the world, there's going to be a little bitty march going on with people like us who are saying legalize and regulate cannabis today. So yes,
Right.
and again, like I said, we brought it to Toronto. Stephen, One Angel, Stephen Bacon. I kind of miss him. I hope maybe he comes out this year. But Gary and I are going to be there on May 6th. Come heck or high water, and we're going to be big side in my wheelchair, and we're going to be doing the major city blocks in the Toronto area.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
So never ever
Well,
stop, sweetie. We'll never stop.
no. Well, like I said, it's a hard. We're not there yet. Like we're not
Yeah,
there
we'll
yet.
get
Like
there though. It's not going to stop me from doing things though, sweetie, because they're not moving too fast. I'm just going to have to push a little bit harder.
well, you've been a pioneer
So,
right from the get-go. Like if it wasn't for people like you, we wouldn't be where we are
hey,
today. And that's one thing I'd like to thank you. You've been my mentor and I've looked up to you for almost 20 years now because I think it was 2007 when we got started with this. So, and you're still kicking it
I love
and
you.
always kicking it, right?
Hey, you're a little firecracker. I think
I,
people know that well about you. Sweetheart, it's my honor, honestly. We have traveled this journey, we have traveled this road together, and the journey has been just unbelievable, my friend. I wouldn't have
right.
changed a second of it for a second.
Well,
Never.
it's been fun. It's not over
Sure
yet.
has. Hey, you know what? Fun, but with fun comes some upset too. But hey, again, we're all for everything. That's what life's about. Ups and downs all the time, honey. And again, we're about making things better. That's all we're here for, right?
Well, and
Try
with
and
the
make that path a
with
little
trying to push the
easier.
government with the courts and everything else, that's something that a lot of people don't realize who's behind those court cases, and you're one of them, and you've been one of them for a decade. So again,
Yeah,
thank
but that's
you.
only. I'm not done yet either, sweetheart. I'm still going to be back in the courts soon. I'm just laying a little low because other things. I have three major medical procedures coming up in the next few days. Two that they say are going to be a little difficult, but hey, I scheduled them on 420 because I know my superpowers are going to be at their best. So that, and then I have an MRI at the end of the week, another MRI to see how my brain is working with the MS and stuff. And then Saturday night, I'm going to be out with my rock star friends celebrating. Woohoo! So, yeah, there's lots, and I have the panel that I'm going to be doing. I think it's May 13th in Hamilton for Cannabis and Psychedelics Grow Your Own, and the March as well on the 6th. And I've got a bunch of other stuff. Again, my lawyer, Paul Lewin, and I are still in the works with things. And Paul, I'll just let a little information out. I just spoke to him the other day, and I think now it's been well over 500 days since I applied for a Section 56 from the Canadian government from Health Canada, legally allowed to possess and consume psilocybin as medicine. And since I haven't had an answer yet in over 500 days, Paul thinks he might take a little bit of a different turn and see if he can't do a judicial review. So that is my latest. So we're still in court, we're still fighting, and I want to make sure that it's not about me. But the lawyers did tell me years ago that in order for me to do anything, I have to be legal. And I never even thought of that. But anyway, so I'm going to get me legal, and then I'm going to get all of you legal too, so we can all be in this together.
All right. Again,
Hey, lots
pioneering for
going
other
on.
people.
Honey, you know what? Again, with everybody doing so much around the world, and again with you and especially you and Al here in Canada, and all the shows that go on with you guys, I mean, I try to catch as many as I can, and you guys are just unstoppable. You're fire. You put me to shame. I don't even know when you sleep.
Oh, so we don't do that. I don't, but I don't know. We just do the shows. It's just, it almost feels like we have to be doing it. Because
Yeah.
if you don't doing this, then there's, like, I mean, there's networks and other people who are doing stuff. And that's great because the more the merrier. And that's how I think.
Hey,
The more the merrier to spread, no matter what. So,
always.
right? So again, like, we're always looking for content, and it's important to get people. Why I moved my show to nighttime because it was a morning show before. Why we moved to nights because it was just easier. It's a little late for some people in the out east, but it's easier for some of us out west, right? It seems to
My
be working
pain
out,
never sleeps.
right?
my pain never sleeps, honey.
Well,
No,
that's not good
but you
either.
know what? All the work you're doing, honey, is so appreciated. I swear tomorrow. I try to get people to tune to you guys all the time to hear things because it's so informative. Every bit of information we hear is incredible. And that's the one reason I love this whole movement and the people in it is because we're like a family. We're like a big extended family.
Right?
Oh, did you
And
hear
try to
so
help
and so
each
said?
other.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the coolest thing. Wow. So I'll tell you,
Right?
honey, as I said, we're not done yet. We got a lot more to do, and we're not done with Health Canada either with the medical program. There's a lot going on, and I'm telling you, I'm a little upset. I don't even
Yeah.
know if you knew, I think I mentioned this before to somebody, but I haven't had a cannabis license or a psilocybin license for years now. And I don't
I don't have
really
one either.
care.
I don't have one either, and
Arrest
I
me.
don't really care either.
Arrest me.
And that's how
Honey,
I take it. Like,
I
I'm
wouldn't
not doing it.
suggest it to everybody, but I will say that again, I have protection, so you be careful, honey. But I have protection with the lawyers. But also, again, what we're trying to do here tomorrow is teach the country as well and the government that it is a lot more serious than they're taking it. Right? You have to realize that patients, again, I don't get better over the years. I wish I did. Oh, and my illness will never disappear. So I once when we first got cannabis licenses given to us, we had cards years ago with pictures and everything on it, and all our information, which was a big mistake because it had our address on it. If we lost it, we were in big trouble. Amounts of cannabis that we consumed, everything on it. But ultimately, it turned out that years later, we realized right away the cards were not only targeting us, but at the same time, there must have been something that they could do to sort of keep us a little safer, right? And that was again the whole, point of the program and going through the program, so trying to meld it and mold it to what the patient's needs were. And that again is where we're
Right?
at a crossroads now because Health Canada is not taking that into consideration. The amounts that they're allowing for grams per day, etc., would not even come close to somebody like me, and that's why I won't apply. And that's the way I've been that way for years now, because
Right?
nobody would sign for 150 grams a day, and I can't go any less. I still consume 150 grams a day. But now again, it comes out of Gary's pocket, right? Which is not
Well,
fair.
we have to cut it off now. But stick around. We'll have a conversation after. But thanks very much. I'll see everybody next week. And again, thanks to you and our sponsors. Y'all have a good
We love you. Thank you, Tamara.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Woohoo.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical